What's going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of our Twitter Spaces of the Walking 90 Show. You know, your bi-weekly roundabout show. We talk about USL League One, everything like that. We also got the owner of South Georgia Tormenta on here with us, so we'll invite him so we can talk to him as well. But first and foremost, I am your host, Elliot Barr, and I'm back from being off of a beach in Mexico where I had to take several shots to wash down the pain of losing to Charlotte. But also joining me online is my good friend Kyle Carr, who is enjoying himself a little Hennessy, but not too much as they did lose to Greenville, so he's still near the bottom of the table. How are you
You
doing,
know
buddy?
what? That's fine. Win the Happy Derby trophy, and I could care less how the rest of the season goes. So one win down, one more to go, and I'll be fine with this.
You know that second game is going to be a draw, right? Like, you know how this is going to go. Joining me on the line is a guy that whose team came to Richmond and drawed 1-1 with my team, and the second half is probably forgettable, but their goalkeeper might be hurt. It's Mr. Chip. How are you doing, my good
I
man?
am doing good. You know, not exactly the result I was hoping for. I was always hoping for a win against my Walking 90 co-host, but a draw against one of the best teams in the league away from home. You know, that's okay with me. I guess, you know, the big question becomes when, as an Omaha fan, do we have to stop being okay with draws and start getting wins? It's been a long time since we've had a home game for League One.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's kind of been the theme this year. Like, it's
I don't
been.
know. You could probably go another like 11 or 12 based off the past experiences. You probably get sick of it by a draw like 9.
Like, I just feel like it's been the theme all year long. Like, it's been draw, draw. Like, no team has really pulled away yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's been kind of weird. Before we talk about this last week's past, guys, I want to ask you guys this question. Um, if you can manage one team in USL League One that is not your team, who would it be?
Huh. That's a good question. It's definitely not Madison because I get shit canned right away.
You get fired as soon as you get
They're
through
the
the door.
team that seems to have the highest propensity for firing their coaches. Probably Fuego.
Fuego? Okay,
Because
that's not bad.
no one knows
Fuego's
what
not
the
bad.
hell's going on out there. Like, it seems like they announce a new coach like every other day now out there. So, I think Fuego.
Cal,
I
what you say, my friend?
I would probably go with NCFC just because if I can live somewhere else, I'd be okay with living in Raleigh. That'd be fine. I'd be all right with that.
I just want you to know both of you are wrong. The correct answer is Tormentor, just for vibes.
Gonna hang out with Bolt all day.
Yeah, exactly.
See, but that's the thing. I wouldn't get anything done. I would be too busy goofing around Bolt. I wouldn't be focused. I'd just be like, all right, go attack, and forget that. I have a really good defense, and would completely screw it up tactically, and I would get fired.
I mean, it couldn't be as hard as the first two seasons in USL League One. But while we do that, we're gonna invite Darren on to. We're gonna ask him a couple of questions about his beloved Tormenta Birds and how that club kind of has transformed over the past year. Because, like, I don't know if you guys remember, but like when Tormenta first came in, like I think it was the first 3 months, they were like the team, like they were the team to beat, and then they kind of just nosedived, and it happened in the year two, and then also in the year three. I don't know. It's kind of like this year now, like with the solid defense, with the pieces they added, they kind of seem to be getting back into their group.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd agree with that. I think of all the other teams in League One, if there was a team besides Omaha that I would want to have success, it'd probably definitely be Tormenta. And I'm not just saying this because Darren's online. I think they do a lot of things the right way. You know, you look at it, they do the youth academy. They have the USL2 team. They're doing a USLW team. They have the USL1 team. And it's all in a very small market. And they take guys and girls who appeared in their academy and they promote them up to the two team and promote them up to the senior team. And ultimately, I just think that's just the way that it should work in this country. And that's, I think, the model that in the future is what most of these League One teams are going to be. Is it's a identify local talent, develop it, have them play for your senior team. And I think it's really cool that they're doing it that way. And I'm glad to see that they're having success so far.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how they've been able to kind of go from that PDL up to League One and kind of have that whole infrastructure. Like, they have the infrastructure in place, and I think that's something that a lot of these clubs, not just in USL League One, but even in the USL Championship, they're still trying to figure out, or they still haven't done. So the fact that they've had this, and it's not like a brand new thing, they've had this in place for years, and I think, as we mentioned, you kind of see the rewards that have come out of it, whether it's promoting guys and they play really well and then they get transfers and that can bring more money to the club, or having someone even play in the Premier League. Like, it is, I think it's more of that testament of, okay, so you have the infrastructure, you have the plan, and executing it so well. And it's kind of one of those that if there's a team that wants to try and copy it, that would be the team to copy.
Yeah.
If you couldn't pick like an MLS academy, you would probably go with the Tormenta model if you're going to go like based off a lower league team model.
Yeah, they've been very successful with the things they've been able to do. Very successful on the off the field. Before we start, I just want to say that my pick so far for Coach of the Year is correct. I picked Tormenta's head coach, Mr. Cameron, to win Coach of the Year, and so far I am looking brilliant.
I'm doing all right. Yeah,
I can't remember.
I picked later.
Yeah, I had Eamon. Eamon doesn't look too bad either, though. I mean, bit of a slow start, but they've played 5 games. They're sitting in 8th with 7 points. You know, that's not round of 32 of the Open Cup. That's not too shabby, especially considering we think Omaha's home game situation is bleak. They're not playing their first home game until June 8th, and from my understanding, their stadium may not be done in time.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's just a weird situation altogether.
Well, right now, especially with all the supply chain constraints and everything else, I got to imagine it's very hard to do.
Yeah, it probably sucks. Do you think there's a possibility like they could, like, say if the stadium doesn't get built, do you think there's a possibility like they play every game on the road?
No, 0% chance. And honestly, I think I was talking to when we did our little like pre-Open Cup deal on Linners and Woozers, I think is the name of it. It's the NoCo pod. We were kind of chatting after the show was over, and my comment was almost the best chance scenario, or the best case scenario for them would be if they maybe have to play 1 or 2 games like in Fort Collins at the high school or something, just because it seems like for how well the team's been doing relatively, that there's not a lot of movement around them locally per the NoCo guys. And so I think having it in Fort Collins itself might cue a lot of people into what's going on. So I don't think that'd be the worst thing, but they'd find somewhere to play. It just may not be the best scenario. And I think it's Colorado State up there. So I'm sure Colorado State has a women's facility they could use, if not a men's team that they have as well. So they could definitely, they'd find somewhere to play.
All right. Well, I imagine that. Also, another thing, guys, in Mexico, I know that you guys had what's the thing we do every other Thursday? The YouTube show. Duh, I should know this. And I was on YouTube watching and I was commenting. I want you to know I was plastered drunk. The drink that I was drinking the entire week in Mexico was called a caipirinha. It is pretty much a shit ton of rum, a shit ton of sugar, and a shit ton of lime. And I was drunk up my ass. Drunk in my ass to the point that I fell asleep at the beach for 4 hours. Yep. Pretty much.
Hopefully the sunburn wasn't too bad.
See, I had a bunch of sunscreen, and I smartly positioned myself underneath the tree, so that way it wouldn't, I wouldn't get too massive of sunburn. I got a little bit, like on my shoulders, but that's because I was in the pool and, I was trying to be pretty.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. But yeah, I think I found my new drink. Like, no more beer for me, guys. It's all about the caipirinhas.
So you can actually make that. So it's a Brazilian drink, and they actually make it with this like sugar cane local thing. That's pretty good too. If you can find like a cigar bar by you, I bet they have that, and they can make it the Brazilian way, which is a little bit different, but also pretty good.
Yeah. No, it was great. But
I've
enough
had the
about my
Portuguese
time.
ways. It's not. It's brutal. It's very strong. I've had it in Portugal. It'll sit you on your ass.
I mean, that's what liquor is supposed to do in Mexico. Which also another thing. I promise. This is the last thing. I've never been outside the country, so when I got off the plane and like I had like a bit, like not a billion, that's an exaggeration. Maybe like 12 people coming to me and be like, taxi, 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 taxi. Yo, I freaked out for like 20 minutes. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh yeah, that's always fun. Yeah, you're not supposed to talk to them. That's a scam.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I was like, what the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken me like a good week to get out of saying gracias, sí, no. Yeah.
Yeah, Mexico's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was a lot of fun. But I digress about that, my good man. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about this week's packed games. We start off with Greenville versus Ford Madison. We got Gio on the call as well. I know Gio's excited to talk about his Greenville boys. I think John Hart's hand is slowly moving away from that panic button. 2-0 win over Ford Madison. Cal, I have to imagine there has to be a little bit level of disappointment coming off of the Henny Darby win. Quote
There's
unquote.
no game on Friday night. I don't know.
No, Cal. We're
There's
not
no
doing
sports
this.
on Friday night.
Cal, we're not doing this.
Don't be like that.
We're not doing this. We're not doing this because you had all this energy. We y'all won the Henny Darby, which you know was an own goal.
So,
and now all of a sudden there was no game on Friday. Cal, there was a game on Friday. You lost 2-0 to Greenville.
I don't know.
It should have been 5. It should have been 5. It should have been like 5.
Yeah. I mean,
it should have been 5 at half.
Y'all made Don Smart, that was playing central defensive mid, look like an all-star.
He should have. He's MVP of the season now after that one game.
And we all know that Don Smart has 0 like hamstrings left. Cal, you are breaking up just like Ford Madison did in the second quarter.
Oh. Listen, I hear Kyle's being a family man, so my son just finished his belt test, and he tore it up just like we tore up Madison's defense. So,
Basically, what I was trying to say is I don't know what the hell happened. Defensively, they're all over the place. But yeah, if it weren't for Phil Brino, it would have been 4 or 5 at halftime and probably 6 or 7 overall. Like, they were awful. The fact that the XG was only 2.59 was insultingly low for Greenville. But yeah, it was just bad.
Yeah.
So I will tell you this. No, there is. There's a whole bunch to say. This game was a carbon copy of the Madison Ford game. Like, seriously. It was the exact same game. The only difference is that Richmond could not finish to save their life.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I still think the biggest issue the biggest issue I have with Madison is kind of like the same issue I have with Greenville in this instance of like who's leading your front line. Like, I think Greenville is a little bit more secure in it because Greenville can always rely on their defense. But Madison really can't say like, oh well, we have this top-notch defense that we can rely on and be secure in because of the fact of, well, shit, we're changing coaches again. You know, and you got to learn this whole new system over again. I think a big miss is Wheeler Unu. He's out right now, but still, like, there's no one leading the Ford Madison front line.
Yeah,
I mean, you guys are missing a Malloy.
There were injuries. There were injuries, but that doesn't excuse how poorly they played. They only brought 16 or something, so it was a very short bench, but that still shouldn't explain the defensive lapses. That still doesn't explain allowing another set-piece goal or letting Galivanis dribble all over them for the second goal. Like, it doesn't excuse it. Like, yeah, the injury sucked, but I think the bigger issue is the press that was present in the first 3 games against Chattanooga, against Omaha, against Tucson. There was no press that was there. The press wasn't doing what it needed to do. And, yeah, part of that is obviously not having Wheeler Omeniu, but at the same time, like, you still had Drew Connor. You still had guys that you would, in theory, could activate that press. And it wasn't really until kind of saw more of that urgency. And granted, that probably could have been because Greenville was maybe taking their foot off the gas, considering that the result was more or less already at hand. But I would say it was more the press not doing what it needed to do, and it put a lot of pressure on that back three.
Mm-hmm.
But Greenville also played really well. Like, Greenville did exactly what they needed to do, and they kept attacking. And that's something that they've struggled with all season. So the fact that they were able to kind of come out and do that is props to them for kind of figuring it out as well.
Yeah, I feel like during the 60th minute, I was worried. Like, if you guys got a goal, then the game will be on, But after between the 60 and 75th, 80th, it seemed like they gave up. Like, yeah, we're not going to score today, and they're not going to create anything. They're not getting past Ricky or Lee or anybody. Everybody was just pretty sound. And we finished the game just holding possession, no real big chances on either side, and everybody was just content. We were content to win. You guys were content to lose. Let's get out of here. And that's sad. It was kind of sad to see. It wasn't as exciting as some other games. And I expected more from Madison after winning last week. So, luckily, they shouldn't. Richmond should have won that game, but I digress.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch that game, the fact that Richmond didn't even get at least a draw was shocking. Which, again, I was like, you do what you need to. You get the 3 points, you get the hell out. But they cannot continue to have these flat performances with their press if they're not going to, at the very least, be more threatening. Because that was the thing. Madison's defense, while it's been sloppy in this game, they've done a pretty good job overall at not allowing clear-cut chances to most of its opponents. Richmond, there's a couple clear-cut chances. Omaha had a couple clear-cut chances, but Chattanooga didn't have that many for both of the games. Fuego didn't have any at all. The goal came off of a fluke bad touch from Brino. Tucson, it wasn't until they were down to 10 men. So it's like, defensively, they've done what they needed to most of the time. But this game was just I don't know what happened. It just felt like it just felt sluggish.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it was our best attacking game and your team's worst.
Well, honestly, it just comes down to the fact, this is the game that Greenville really needed to get the stuff kick-started. Like, Greenville needed a game which they were like, all right, we can... It was just the perfect storm kind of game. Like, they can do the things they need to do to kickstart off, because before that, it was looking sketchy for Greenville. But we'll close out that game. We'll move on to Saturday.
Thank God. All right,
the game that was probably the game of the week, and it was hella toxic and crazy. North Carolina FC 2. Olex Anderson has still not won in Raleigh since he's been in USL League One.
Wait. You're saying that was the toxic game? You're saying that was toxic? Did you not watch Fuego and Chattanooga?
Toxic to the... Not live.
Yeah, that game was crazy. Yeah, it was chippy.
I mean, but that's typical from Chattanooga and Fuego. That's typical. North Carolina and Tormenta, I don't know. Maybe I was expecting high score. I don't know what I was expecting, but this is probably the best game to watch out of the 3 games that were on.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to say this, if North Carolina makes the playoffs, Olex Anderson might be a dark horse contender, for MVP, because he's been on one this year. I think he's been a part of almost every goal that North Carolina scored. In 5 games, he has 3 goals and 2 assists. Yeah, I think he's been part of almost every goal they scored this year.
I was gonna say, was he suspended that game? Nabuyu? I don't see him in the lineup.
What, Olex?
No, never mind. Don't listen to me. I'm trying to find his real name so I don't absolutely slaughter it. But I have the wrong team. Yeah, Olex Anderson. Yeah, if they make the playoffs, he definitely has a case. I don't think his situation in Richmond was necessarily bad, but without Terzaghi there, he's really been able to shine. And I think that's really helpful for him as a player. And I would say it's probably his team. I just have their stats up right now. He's one behind on top scorer, lead assists, lead goals and assists, leading shots per 90, leading successful dribbles. Like he's leading in pretty much every single offensive category for them, except for goals, and he's only one behind.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I think the thing that works best for Olex is being in a partnership. Like, he works really well in the front too, as a main striker where he can drift, he can go come in, come out, and he partners well with McLaughlin like, really well. Now, the issue with North Carolina is their defense, which, guys, how did Tormenta score that third? Like, there's no way they should. This game should have been a draw.
When
it's because
playing
Tormenta's
out
the team of
back
destiny
goes wrong. It's that simple. When playing out the back goes wrong.
I will say it is crazy, and we've already kind of given some shine to Tormenta today, but it is crazy that on a points per game basis, they're first in the league right now.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not like we're 1 or 2 games in. Like, we're 6-7 games through the season, and they're in essentially first place. Which, good for them, because I know they've definitely – I think I had them at 6th or 7th in my preseason ranking, just kind of right there on the playoff bubble. But not only do they look like a playoff team right now, they look like they might host, if not get a bye, which is, again, it's just a testament to the people that they brought in the offseason, and they really had a vision for what this team was supposed to be. And they went in and found those guys, and they are definitely enjoying the fruits of that search right now.
Yeah, they are. It really seems like they did a really good job of recruitment. I know it was tough to let go of Marco Micheletto, who deserves a statue. Darren, I know you heard that.
But more than that, they sold 3 or 4 guys this season.
I mean,
including some big piece of their defense.
Right. It's not like they just – and this is the difference I want to say. Like, it's not like they just let them go. You know how sometimes these clubs at these levels will let guys go to join a NISA or to join a USL League 2 team or to join some, weird-ass, 4th Division Austrian team? Like, they
or Omaha. Yeah, or Omaha, who, because of some contract stuff, they let everybody walk to go to championship and don't have anything to show for it. But, again, Tormenta, 4 guys that they sold on, which is crazy.
I mean,
in fairness, some of them were to 3rd division, but, Marco Micheletto is the captain of Columbus Crew too.
And I will probably say just there's a call-up very soon. Like, if the way how Columbus is going, there's no harm in calling him up to the first team. Other thing about this game, guys, I really just want to ask you guys this. Jara from South Georgia Tormenta, is he starting to show he's in that upper echelon of goalkeepers, like in that Akira Nuhu realm, or is he still right below it?
Was he not already there?
I personally didn't have him there just based on the last 2 years.
I'm trying to think,
I did.
Akira Nuhu, I'm trying to think of keepers that I would definitively have had. And
those
I can't think of that many.
I'd say he's probably – I would say he's maybe just right below that tier, and that's just because of the results of the previous years. But if they can keep this up, they're right in that conversation because, with how they've been doing
on him. I feel like it.
I think it's kind of like the argument we had about Nuhu last year, though, where it's like, is he the best goalkeeper? And I don't think the Richmond guys were incorrect when they said, well, Nuhu didn't face a lot of shots. So, yeah, he has the best goals against and everything else, but he didn't face a lot of goals. But Pablo's been facing a lot of goals, and they're getting results. And I think, and maybe it's just a perception thing of, you could be a good goalie on a bad team, but people aren't going to look at you as a good goalie just because the results aren't there. But all of a sudden, when the results are there, I think that kind of really changes some of the perception and kind of pushes you up into the top tier goalies in the league.
Yeah, I guess I always had him more on that top tier just because, there's Akira, there's Nuhu, And then it would probably be that Dallas J, Yara kind of echelon. I know I'm missing one other person. I guess Brito was at one point. Even Christian said, you had those guys that were it's not necessarily a large gap from the top two of that, but it was a very close gap within it. So I guess I was just considered him, if you were to put him on any other team, would he start? And I would think for most USL League One teams, even the last 2 years, it would probably be a yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. We move on to the next game, the game that I got through custom enough to see the last 10 minutes of in person. Richmond versus Union Omaha. The second half of this game, there's nothing to really talk about.
No.
Neither team really created anything. It wasn't nothing to wrap home about. Mainly all the action happened in the first half. Chip, your guy, Meza, beautiful header. He ran into the space really well. I think on that goal, I'm really disappointed in Stephen Payne because I hate this thing that fullbacks do sometimes where it's they're in this plane of space, and instead of just running and closing out and forcing the person to if the person is showing you hey, I'm about to cross this and you're just gonna give me 5 yards of space, and instead of just running him and forcing him to go inside or out while he's trying to gather, it's kind of oh well, I'm just gonna stand here and just shift my body. You're kind of just giving him an angle to pass it in, and it just gives him another header. Kind of disappointing.
And I think in the preseason we kind of talked about preseason awards, and I said, it's going to be some random guy from Omaha that's going to be one of these Golden Boot dark horse guys. And between him and Hugo Kamatami and Ryan Jiba, it looks like you could even throw Connor Doyle in there if you wanted to get real crazy with it. There is a couple just random dudes from Omaha that you've never heard of before that all of a sudden are, doing a lot of stuff in this league. And again, it's just the big hat tip to Jay for finding these guys from the college ranks, getting them to sign and building a cohesive team pretty much from scratch from last year. But between him and Kamatami, and I think Camille Malcolm, once he kind of gets his feet underneath him a bit, it's going to be a really dangerous attacking core that we have in Omaha. And I think, unfortunately, we're still trying to see it come together. But ultimately, I think Omaha is going to be pretty potent offensively, kind of like what we saw at the tail end of 2020 with the talent that they brought in, especially as they continue to gel together. But for now, we had to settle for a 1-1 draw in Richmond, which, like I said at the top of the show, isn't the end of the world. Ties on the road against top half competition, that's fine. My real question is, what did people say when they saw you show up with 10 minutes left?
Well, everyone knew that I was in Mexico. They assumed that I was still there. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm here. That was pretty much it. It was just more so shocked that I came.
Yeah, you just showed up in Section O and everyone's like, holy shit, it's Yogi.
Oh, you're here. Yeah, I'm here, guys. I am here. Now, the goal from Gordon, which was a good goal, is there any update on Nuhu? How is he or anything? Any update on him?
You know better than that. Jay's not going to say shit. He's not going to say shit about shit.
Yeah,
he's going to, splice in pictures of Nuhu in practice, but he's actually injured. Well, and of course, not looking ahead too much, and we can talk about this in a bit, but it really makes the match on Wednesday against Minnesota United interesting because having a guy like Nuhu between the pipes could be the difference in a game like that where, not that Piedetra is a bad goalkeeper by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's Nuhu's has the seasoning and everything else that I think, like we talked about, he's definitely one of the best keepers in the league, and having him there, especially if he goes to PKs, I think you feel a lot better about it. But, it's going to be nerve-wracking, and hopefully they took him out more than anything because of an abundance of caution. He kind of got kicked in the head, neck area. So, that's never any fun. So hopefully it was just a precaution because for Omaha, losing a piece like that would be really, really bad, even in the short term, because we're kind of, I wouldn't say we're riding the razor's edge. We are in the Open Cup because it's win or go home, but we definitely probably want him around this season, and there's no use in him getting hurt long term if we can avoid it. But yeah, Jay hasn't said shit about shit, as you can imagine, because he doesn't. If he gets hurt, he won't even be on the injury report next week.
No. Because USL League One coaches don't believe in sharing news. Like,
Well, why would you?
Government business.
Well,
Why
that
would
was
you
the
if
thing
you
that
not to share
pissed me
it?
off when I saw the Madison lineup. I was like, oh, Audie Judson is there. Oh, Bartman is there. Okay, what happened? Because they were fine just earlier that week. So what the hell happened? And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, they had a hip injury. Oh, thanks, Matt. That would have been something to let us know, so that way I could have tempered expectations.
Right. Like, it's okay to let your fans know what's going on. I promise you.
Right, like if it's someone that you expect to start and all of a sudden they're not even in the squad, like I'm gonna have questions.
Right. Like I care because I want to know. That's not a bad thing, guys.
Plus, I can't pod and talk about and write about it if I don't know what's going on. I gotta write previews, man.
Yeah, Kyle's got to do one of his 8 podcasts of the week.
Kyle has been doing a whole media tour, which has been hilarious.
Yeah, it's been every day I've had to record some podcast variation. This is day 4.
Yeah, he's gonna end up on Who Gives a Hoot for some reason here soon.
Oh, League One Fun and League One Unfiltered are going to come back from one episode. I'm just going to host it.
What were we saying, boys?
So I will say this, guys. Like, I want to ask you and Kyle this. Like,
so fuck
biggest
rugby.
concern-
You won't be fucking drumming anymore.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
Okay. So when it comes to Richmond, like, I think the biggest issue I have right now is like, the lack
American
of creativity.
prick.
It's kind of fun when I can just yeet people out of this.
Yeah, sir. I don't know if I accidentally made them speakers when I was trying to figure out who they were. Sorry about that. Oh, they all
like speaking is fine, but don't come in here swearing and not bring anything to the conversation.
Well, I think they're Celtic fans too. I think they're just trying to get on all the soccer things and make fun of the Rangers for losing. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I know that they were talking about doing a League One Fun for the NGS stuff just because they both wanted to talk about it, or League One Unfiltered, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, what were we talking about before the Scottish guys came in?
I was asking you guys, like, I think the biggest issue I have right now with Richmond is the lack of creativity when it comes to stuff. Like, I think Richmond does fine right before the final third, but I think the biggest issue with Richmond is the lack of ball movement, and also like there's no one penetrating runs in between the final third. So like, Chip, I'm pretty sure you saw multiple times against Junior Omaha. Like, you will press really, really high, and then once you pass midline, what they do, they track back into like a 4-4-2 defensive block and get really tight. And the only way you're going to break that is if you have players running in between and pulling them apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I just think that's really trying to show.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the fact that Richmond really was just like, we're just gonna pass the ball around the top of the 18-yard box and try to do crosses. Which I'm not gonna lie, like, crosses doesn't work for this team because your best offensive player is 5'7". Like, that's not gonna work. So you have to be more innovative. And if you're going to go for the long ball, great. That's fine when you're at the midway point. But not when you're like not when you're right on top of the final 18-yard box. Like, if they're just a little bit more patient on the ball, I think Richmond can create some chances. But they're not. And it's the moment, like, I guess they just overthink and overcook stuff.
Well, especially against a team like Omaha, where Omaha's going to make as few errors as possible. And that just really hurts it when you're waiting for them to do something because, I think Jay would rather not score a goal than have a defensive muck up.
Yeah.
But, it is, I think as with anything, Richmond getting a draw here isn't the end of the world. There's plenty of more points on the table and, it'll be interesting to see because I think, again, having guys that aren't named Terzaghi scoring is a good thing for Richmond, and the more guys they can get in the mix, the better, because especially last year, it seemed like a lot of teams, the goal was just to shut him down. Like that's what Madison said, was like, we just don't want him to shoot. And you don't let him shoot. And, even if everyone else is shooting, there's just no one that can finish. And so, definitely not their best performance for Richmond, but definitely one that you can build off of. And I don't know, this game did feel like a tie because a lot of these draws, you watch these draws and you feel like one team should have won or one team should have lost. And it felt like a draw, especially in the second half. It's like, just nothing much is going to happen.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100% felt like an even game. It's just even to the point of like, you got to do more with the opportunities you get,
Right. Which, looking at it, Richmond had 12 shots, Omaha had 10. They both had one big chance. They both put those away.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it. Closing out that game, because that game was boring as hell. We go to the game that was probably like dating your.
Did you see the Omaha fans while you were there?
No, I didn't. So I got there super late, so I didn't get a chance to talk to anyone.
Yeah, because I was talking about this on the show where you on the beach is the cover photo, but some Omaha fans were going down and being like, "Oh, we're going to hang out with Yogi." It's like, "Oh, good fucking luck. It's going to be in Mexico." So I was wondering if when you got there you saw somebody, but cool.
Nah, I didn't. I didn't get a chance to, unfortunately. It seemed like everyone wants to come to Richmond and meet me for some reason.
You are Richmond.
The club don't feel that way.
We can get into that later.
Yeah. Next game coming up, you got Chattanooga versus Central Valley Fuego. This game was very, very toxic. Yeah, but I will say this: it was an entertaining game. It was an entertaining game to watch. Also, my boy Victor Flacco. So, what is with every game ending in the first half? Because in the second half of this game, I don't feel like nothing much else happened outside of the red card.
That's when all the fireworks were in the second half.
Yeah, it was. You're right. All right.
Well, I gotta say, I made that comment. Well, we can talk about the game that Kyle Ebony and I forgot to talk about, but I think Mr. Amon's been hanging out with Mr. Mims too much. Like everyone on that coaching staff's getting cards and for NoCo, but I think this is the same thing where there's a lot of cards to the bench. Eventually, it looks like a straight red for Jose Carrera, and it was. And we kind of talked about this. These are definitely the two teams that kind of like shithouse the most, and they're the teams that are trying to make you bite and everything else, and they just want to play physically and everything else. And they definitely lived up to that reputation in this game. I'm trying to find on FOTMob the fouls for it. 14 fouls for Chattanooga and 9 for Central Valley. Like this was three yellow cards and a red for Chat and surprisingly only one yellow card for Fuego. I mean, this was definitely a game where it felt like more like a fight than a soccer game at certain times. That's for sure.
It felt like a Sunday league dudes got drunk at the bar kind of game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was watching this I was watching this at my brother-in-law's house. Like they're just falling all over the place, and they're like, "Man, like what's that guy just like punched another guy?" And it's like, "Well, no, it's just a little shove." Like this is a really physical game. It's like, yeah, like it shows that you don't watch a lot of soccer if you don't think soccer's physical, because this is definitely a physical game.
Right, very physical. So we had a goal by Juan Gallardes. So it's nice to see that he's getting on the score sheet, even though it was a penalty.
And there we go. That's my MVP pick off the mark.
Well, you better hope he does more than what he did. Guys, Chattanooga is still the top team in USL League One. Do you feel like that's a fair reflection on Chattanooga thus far, or do you feel like they're there just because of who they play? Not really, they're the best team.
I was hoping Creel would get on. Yeah, I would say like it's hard to argue results, and of course I don't have the expanded standings up, but this is a team with 3 wins so far. Like that's nothing to stick your nose up at, and I think that's definitely a situation that evolves. I'm talking about, oh well, they played this team or this team or this team. so much of it is when you play teams and when you play them. Just because kind of looking at their form, like they beat NoCo. I wouldn't say NoCo's a bad team, even though they got beat 4-1.
They thrashed.
They
them
lost
too.
Yeah, and I would say NoCo is finally starting to get into form, and they're scared. I mean, they lost to Tucson. 1-0 draw against 1-0 draw versus versus the Kickers. Or excuse me, good lord. 1-0 win versus the Kickers, and then 3-1 versus NC. Like none of the teams they've played are really slouches besides, maybe Tucson, and they lost that game. But yeah, I mean, so far I would say they are first in the table, but I'd say probably Charlotte or South Georgia, I think, is a better team right now. So they're first through the goal differential. I wouldn't say they're the best team in the league, but I wouldn't say they don't deserve being number one right now. I think if you're a Red Bulls fan, you should think that, maybe you're going to be getting a bye or at least hosting a playoff game at this point. And I don't think you're wrong to think that.
Yeah, I would basically agree. Probably a team that should host a playoff game at the very least and strong contender for top 2.
Yeah. Because conversely, like with Fuego, I know Brandon isn't on, but Brandon has some comments about Fuego and their attacking and everything else. And it's like, yeah, they're fourth in the table. Do I really think they're the fourth best team in the league? No,
definitely not.
I mean,
absolutely not.
I don't think they're the worst team, but they're not the best. Like, I think they'll probably finish down in that 9-10 band, 9-10-11 band. But, good for them for being better than that right now. But I would say, like, of all the playoff teams right now, Central Valley is probably the pretender. And, Chattanooga, they've been good the past 3 years. Like, we know they're going to be good. Them being first place, it isn't super surprising at this point.
All right, cool. So we'll move on from that, and we'll go talk to Charlotte, who, oddly enough, had 2 back-to-back home games in the span of 4 days. So we'll talk about Charlotte as a whole. Yeah, we'll talk about this game. We'll talk about Charlotte as a whole, a part of these 2 games. 2-1 games, but on the wrong result of one of them. Charlotte is not the team who we thought they were. They're a completely different squad. How do you rate Charlotte this year? Because I feel like they're all attack and just defense on vibes. Hey, am I wrong in saying that?
They're basically what I expected Tormenta to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I expected them to be more, we're going to, they are attacking. They're not going to defend. I thought they'd be worse, but they've proven to be pretty solid and not above average. Like, playoff team seems like a fair assessment. But they really got to fix that defense. They're not going to. I think they're not going to be contenders if that defense still plays the way they do.
Yeah, and I think again with them, it's they're probably going to fall. They're third right now, tied for that first on points. I think they'll probably fall to earth, but falling to earth, that could be to 6th place for them. And I think a lot of that is Mbuyu has been just transcendent this year for a guy who really didn't play. This is not a guy that I had on my radar at all. He barely played for them last year. Comes down a level. He's kicking ass. He's taking names. He's the player that Ibarra wishes he was. And even that who knows what's going to happen ultimately? Because I know Ibarra has some weird player preferred signing agreement or something weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Does that change stuff? I don't know. But the one thing that seems pretty constant is Charlotte likes getting red cards.
That is very true. That is very true.
Dumb red cards, I should say too. They're not good red cards. They're dumb red cards.
Yeah, they are the. I thought Tucson was going to be the one that gets dumb red cards, and Charlotte has decided, nope, we're going to take that crown.
Well, they got rid of Maxi. That's who's getting all the. That was their big red card guy. But I will say, holy shit, they reported 3,700 people for the game on Sunday.
Maybe.
I don't know. Okay, this is the thing that I need people to understand, and also commentators on USL League One podcast shows to understand. Yes, it is a lot of fans there. That supporters group is not the independent supporters. Those are Charlotte
Charlotte
FC
FC.
fans that are there to do
Oh,
drum
that's a little wet,
practice.
kiddo. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not.
Well,
too wet.
I know it wasn't friend of the program, Ross Davenport, but whoever was doing the game over the court. If you listen to it, so I watched the whole game, but at like the 6 after the red card, I switched over to listening to some music instead
Why
of
did you throw that?
listening to the broadcast. And I'm talking about the NoCo game, but the announcer was like, "Oh, the Charlotte FC fans have come down to support the Independents today," and it's like you figure that one out. You should have known by all the crowns, like
Right. Like that. Oh God, I'm never trying to act like because that's my MLS team. But it's also just like I need people to understand like these fans are only here to get drum practice in. They are not Charlotte Independent fans. They can get 2 rat's asses about Charlotte.
Right, they're there because it's cheap and they can go ahead and get some drinks and at a much cheaper rate than they would at a Charlotte FC game.
Right. That's
and
all
you know what? Good,
and if that's
good
what
for
they want
them
to
for
do,
going.
right? I was going to say, fine,
Which
if
I'm
that's their
appreciative.
MO.
I'm appreciative of them going. But I just find it weird that they're flying Charlotte FC flags, like not even like Charlotte flags, like Charlotte FC flags at a Charlotte Independence game.
Right. That's the part where I'm like,
I just find that
can
weird.
you guys at least just, even if it was just like black and blue flags, like, okay, fine. But I guess my bigger thing is like, if you want to go, but then don't turn around and, slander USL League One and talk low on USL League One teams. Act like you know what it's like. That's my bigger issue.
Yeah, I would say the Charlotte fans, I don't know if you saw this, Yogi, because you were sitting on the beach, but me and Brandon were definitely defending the honor of Richmond on Twitter.com in your stead. And, I will say I'm not a big fan of these Charlotte people on Twitter. I'm sure there's some wonderful people in the Charlotte FC fan base, but I have yet to meet them.
Oh no! Like I had to stop listening to the podcast because like I listened to like a few Charlotte Independence podcasts. Charlotte FC podcasts, and the way how they would just talk about Richmond like on the U.S. Open Cup, like it was make you seem like we were like a Sunday pub team. Like, oh yeah, there was no Richmond fans in the stadium. I'm like, we definitely had like 4,000 people there. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
are you red blue colorblind? Like you can see the red in the stands.
Right. I'm like,
you can hear him on the broadcast.
It was like, oh, Richmond's like, and then like I understand. Like, look, your team scored the first goal in that first half, but let's not act like Richmond did not put you guys under pressure, had you guys nervous. Let's not act like that. Like, I understand talking about your team for the win. Yeah, winners rule. I understand. But when you talk about your team, you got to be also understanding of like, Richmond came in and did a lot of things that asked questions of Charlotte FC. And also, was the Greenville game a little bit tighter than Richmond? Yes, because Charlotte FC understood, oh shit, if we don't take this seriously, we can get knocked out like Chicago Fire. Also, Charlotte FC understands they're not winning the MLS Cup this year. So, hey, guess what? You're going to play a higher squad. But I digress.
Yeah. But, hopefully some of them come and realize how much fun USL 1 is. And, it doesn't need to be their primary team, but, at least buy a T-shirt or something.
Right.
So I think that's very encouraging that they've had pretty good returns. I know they're doing $99 season tickets and everything else, trying to get people in. And I think especially when you look at how exorbitant the ticket prices are for
all right, buddy, we're gonna stop doing that.
Shout out to Minnesota United. My ticket is $17 for the Open Cup game, so that's pretty cool. That is very affordable, even though the seats aren't the best. But shout out for them for not like charging us $50 a game to go.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's what it would be if Charlotte FC hosted an Open Cup game. It's like away just like Austin, where they've been charging $75 for away tickets. It's like, yep, here's your ticket, $75, and it's like, well, thanks.
Well,
thanks for all
Richmond did that for their home game, but I understand it because you got an MLS team and like they're gonna pay.
Well, but it wasn't $75. I'm sure I think when I went, it was 15 for a GA ticket. What were they? 20, 25 probably.
40. But I mean, once again, it's a U.S.
Whoa.
Open Cup game against an MLS team. Like I
Yeah, I was
understand
gonna say
why the price
Madison's
tag
was 22, 24 for general
Yeah.
admission for against Minnesota.
So, which you guys are already kind of expensive, but I guess because that's about as much as like a normal Flocken ticket, though, right?
Yeah, that's basically. It was like maybe $2 more than a regular season Flocken ticket.
Mhm.
So
So
it
we
was,
won't-
yeah,
we won't-
it was definitely cheaper. It was like a little more expensive. It was like a couple bucks more.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it wasn't
'Cause I
included in
know-
the season ticket because the first game was, but not the Minnesota one.
Yeah, because I know, like, if you and I hope I get this right, but if you're hosting but you didn't host an MLS side, they didn't make you pay like the exorbitant fee to host. So Omaha kind of got out of it for the NoCo game. But
No.
talking to some of my Union Omaha folk, they were saying that if we hosted
gonna
in
go
this
home.
round, in the round of 16, the ticket, they're like, just they're like, if we host, just please do me a favor and just mention why the ticket's more expensive, because people are going to be mad at us. And it's like, no, it's a lot of this is we have to recoup this cost of hosting this game and doing the revenue split and like everything else. So like, it just, we want to host, but it's unfortunate, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's expensive to host and yada, yada, yada. But no, anyways, good for them. But yeah, so let's talk about that Charlotte NoCo game, because I think that if that counts for last week, I think that was the game of the week.
I think it was definitely an entertaining game. I think it was one that I think it lived up to what I expected. You know, kind of an attacking, goal scoring, or at least early on, it was like very attacking, very goal scoring. So I was happy about that. I thought there would have been more goals, but I think NoCo getting that win was impressive. Just because, you know, even though Charlotte is struggling defensively, they're still getting the results at home that they need to. You know, they got the questionable win against Omaha side. They got the draw against Fuego that they were one dumb decision away from winning. I think trying to think of who else they played, but I think most of the teams they played, like they just beat Tucson, like they have been getting the results at home that you need to do. So it was an impressive win for NoCo. I will say that.
Yeah, especially with how Charlotte's been. I think this is a game at the beginning of the season. If you said NoCo's going to beat Charlotte 2-1,
I would have been like, yeah, no shit.
like, yeah, thank you, Nostradamus. Any other tips or hints there? Like, I don't know, but you know, again, it's an impressive win. It kept Charlotte out from going into first place in the league, which is always fun when you can deny a team that. And you know, again, for NoCo, it's a tight race. So saying it bumped them up from last in the playoff race, like, isn't really saying much. But you know, I think again, for NoCo, it's a good win, their first win in the league, and you know, this is a team that a lot of us thought was going to be really, really good, and they're starting to show some of it, and I think it's really good. But did you guys see Cornwall's defense of the goal in like the 87th minute?
I did not see any of this game, so I saw mostly the highlights. So I probably need to know some context going in.
So the goalie was off his line, not like Brano off his line, but he was in front of the box a bit. It went past him. Cornwall was sitting right on the goal line with his hand clenched to his thigh, like if he let go, he was going to die. And it bounced off of his wrist that was attached to his thigh to save the goal. And so, as you can imagine, all the Charlotte our Charlotte players were very animated about the fact that it was a handball, and they reviewed it as best they could. And that, along with several like injury stoppages of questionable provenance, led to there being 12 minutes of stoppage time in this game.
Yep, a good old USL League One classic have an insane amount of stoppage time for no reason.
But you know what, Charlotte? If we were solo cam on the YouTube show, this was when I would say, "Hey, Yogi, give me that solo cam." You know what we call that, Charlotte Independence fans? We call that karma. You guys got a garbage goal against us that shouldn't have counted, and whether or not that goal was supposed to go in or not, it didn't. I wouldn't say we're even because you guys. I guess you guys lost. So, but you know we're even now. welcome to League One. Welcome to the cruel mistress that is
The refs.
League One dumb bounces. We're good now.
Pretty much. Well, that's the perfect segue to go into our next game, the game that we got coming up tomorrow. I have to watch it at 10 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
Why this game? This is stupid. I don't understand why this game is Friday at 10 o'clock. Richmond versus FC Tucson. Richmond flies out to the desert. I think this is a big game for Richmond because Richmond got like 6 games coming up that are. Darren made this statement, and I'm going to hold his feet to the fire about it, about how we're tired of being a prince. We want to be the king, which kind of seems like Richmond has been the second runner-up, which we haven't. We haven't been that. So I don't understand why we're the prince. More like the court gesture. But Richmond really has to improve. And I think these next 6 games are coming up are huge. We're going to FC Tucson, which we have not won in Tucson the last 2 times coming up. But the 6 games Richmond have coming up are at Tucson, at North Carolina, at home against Chattanooga, South Georgia, Charlotte, and NoCo. Which, honestly, that's a tough 6-game stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Tough 6-game stretch. And vice versa, FC Tucson, they need a win badly. You know, this team, outside of the Chattanooga game that more or less, you know, you can kind of argue they might not should have won. They need to win desperately. Who are you guys taking in this matchup?
Well, it is nice to know that Darren also has been listening to mixtape J. Cole talking about tired to be the prince and he wants to be the king. Me too, Darren. Great. The come up's great mixtape. But again, this is a Richmond team who has some demons to excise when it comes to being on the road. You know, it was something where they won or drew most of their home games last year, but away from home, they were a completely different team. Obviously, last year versus Tucson, game against Tucson is ultimately what decided Richmond's playoff fates and having to go to Tucson, where they then lost to Tucson as well. So these are teams that have a bit of a history. And for Richmond to kind of get that monkey off the back, if they want to be the king of USL 1, you better hope that you go in the last place team's home and get 3 points, or at least 1. And, you know, Tucson is kind of a, you know what to go to. You're playing in the desert. You're playing late. You're traveling at least 2 time zones. If you're in East, or you're traveling 3 time zones, 2 if you're in the Central Time Zone. Like it's a long hike out there. And, you know, I think that's the big thing is it is not favorable for away teams. But if you're Richmond and you want to make that statement, you need to get a win here. And likewise, if you're Tucson, they own Richmond out in the desert. If I'm Tucson, I'm saying we need the 3 points. This is what we need to jumpstart our season and get out of the gutter. We need to go in, we need to beat Richmond, and then we need to take that momentum and carry it on to next Saturday. And it's going to be a good game. I think I still think Tucson has the horses, so I think Richmond's going to win like 3-1. Let's call it 3-1.
I feel like this should be a game Richmond should win. Tucson has basically, other than 2 games, looked like the better team. This is a Tucson team that is struggling, and yes, it is at home, which they do better at home than they do away. But I think right now, early season would indicate that it's probably Tucson that's hovering more closely to the bottom. It's probably Tucson that if you had to ask most people, and they had to be logical, they would at least consider Tucson one of the bottom teams. Richmond needs to get a win. I mean, their last 2 home games, draw against Omaha, not bad, but you're at home. You would hope to win. Lose to Madison in a game that, quite frankly, they should have drawn at the very least. Like, they got to go and get a win, or else they're going to go, 3, maybe in 4 games without a win. And that's going to start piling up, and that's something that you can't allow. And if you want to be one of these top teams, then you need to go handle your business against teams that are lurking near the bottom of the table. So I think it's going to be a 2-0 Richmond win. I think this is going to be one of those. And we saw what happened the first time these 2 teams played. Richmond thrashed them. And I think Tucson will have learned. But it's one thing to know and learn from your mistakes. It's another thing to actually apply it in practice.
Yeah, that's right. I think the biggest concern I have is just can Richmond be patient? Like, just be patient on the ball. I think that's the thing that most teams do against Richmond. Like, if you can force Richmond to speed up their style of play, force them to set up crosses early on, you can beat Richmond. You can hold up our draw, and Richmond's defense is eventually going to tire out because they're trying to just rush play. And I think the key to it is Richmond just needs to be patient. I think that's very much it. So we'll see. Next game coming out on Saturday, we got North Carolina FC versus Greenville in a battle of the Carolinas, or as Charlotte FC fans want to put it, an opportunity to spread soccer in the Carolinas. Guys, how are you taking this result? Does Olex Anderson finally get a win in his home city?
No.
I mean, not his home city, but his hometown.
Nope.
Ooh.
I'm going to say it's a draw. I'm going to say like a 1-1
think that's
draw.
A fair result.
I think while Greenville was definitely able to find their attacking groove against Madison, I would expect North Carolina to come out more prepared and more ready. So I'll say a 1-1 draw.
Okay, 1-1 draw. What you got, Chip?
I think that seems about fair. I think North Carolina is definitely a better team than they were last year. Greenville's still kind of struggling despite the result against Madison, but with how they played on Friday last week, they could have played pretty much anybody in the league and won, I think. But I don't know. We'll see. I think, again, with Greenville, the big question is, are we back to the Greenville of the past 3 years, or are we still trying to figure things out? Still got some injuries and everything else there. I agree with the draw. I think maybe 0-0, though. I just think, 0-0 sounds right. I think it's going to be a 0-0 draw. Fun game for Greenville, North Carolina fans. Probably pretty frustrating and boring for the rest of us.
So I'm not going to lie to y'all. I am definitely going to take NCFC in this.
Okay.
I'm going to take NCFC. I think Olex. I mean, really, I think Olex is probably like the dark horse MVP pick right now at this moment. And I think he can kind of lead a Greenville team that I expect NOCO to come out sharp. After the mistakes they had against South Georgia, I expect them to come out and be sharp against them. And I don't have a problem with picking them. So I'm going to pick NCFC and make Ebony happy and crush her hopes next weekend. Next thing we got Tormenta versus South Valley Fuego. Over under on the amount of yellow cards that is going to be in this game.
Well, what are you setting it at?
2.
Over.
Yeah.
Only 2 yellow cards? That'd be shocking.
Well, I think this game's going to be a lot of fun. Like, this is the game where – so I'm dragging my wife out to watch the Liverpool game Saturday morning. I'm not a Liverpool fan, but I like the Liverpool fans here in Omaha. It's at my buddy's place, my buddy's bar, and there's free lunch. So I figured that was a win-win. But unfortunately, the compromise was one League One game, and then we have to watch the Chippendales movie afterwards, which,
could be worse options.
Could be worse.
That's not too bad.
No, not worse.
Wait,
this is the game
about the new Chippendales movie? Are we talking about
yeah.
the new one?
Yeah.
The one where they look weirdly animated? I think that's
they are animated.
But I'm saying they're differently animated.
Oh yeah,
more live action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like the Tom and Jerry one movie. Where they're like animated characters in the real world, which whatever, it is what it is. This is the game I chose to watch though on Saturday after the Liverpool game. This game I think is going to be fun. South Georgia's been great. Fuego hasn't been great necessarily, but they've been a lot of fun to watch. I don't even know how to pick this one, but we say this a lot, and I don't want to say that this is going to be the best game to watch. But, if you're not watching the Ford Madison Charlotte Independence game, you should watch this game instead.
I think that's a fair assumption.
I don't want to
feel
put that
this is
curse
gonna
on this
be.
game.
I feel like it's going to be a low-scoring game. Like, it'll be intriguing just because of Tormenta's defense and Fuego's not so convincing attack. I think this could be one where Tormenta is going to. I think they're going to try and control the game. So I can see a 1-0 Tormenta win. And I feel like it's going to be 1-0, but you could easily see it being like a 2-3 goal game. I just think Tormenta's defense is going to kind of take advantage of Fuego's not as cohesive as I thought they would be attack.
Mm-hmm.
Stop kicking the stroller.
Okay.
Well, and I could see Tormenta just breaking this game open early, too, and just I'm not going to pick that, but I could see him just scoring early, getting like 2 goals in the first 30 minutes and just running roughshod. But I don't know. We'll see. It should be a fun game, though. Again,
this is going to be an intriguing game to watch. It might not be the
Yes.
most entertaining, but it's definitely the most intriguing.
Yes, we don't want to put the curse on.
I think so. I think so as well. It's going to be a definitely fun matchup to watch. But we had the perfect segue. For Madison Charlotte Independence, how do you see your team getting a win?
No.
Well, damn, Kyle. That's the show, folks. Have a wonderful day.
I need to see some attacking fluidity first before I can get back to feeling confident. Like, this is the game where if you can't look threatening on the attack, if you can't do it in this game, I'm very concerned overall. Like, this is the team that you have to, you're at home. Charlotte is not a great defensive team. This needs, even if you don't score that many goals, at least look threatening, at least have chances, at least get those shots at target. So I'm going to say I can see this being like a 2-2 kind of draw, and it's not going to be like the prettiest of 2-2. I feel like there's going to be a set piece goal or two in there, but yeah, they have to, like, if they can't show attacking competence in this game, questions are going to have to be asked.
Do you already feel like the pressure's already on the coach there? Like, do you kind of feel like it's already, like, the fan base answer questions about the coach? Who, by the way, I still 100% believe is a hitman, and that for Madison, this is all karma for being part of YSL.
Will you knock that off? Anyway, no, I don't think there's any.
Yogi or
I don't
Sterling?
think there's pressure. Both. I don't think there's pressure on the coach, to be honest. I don't think so, not yet. I think it's one of those where it's still too early, and I honestly do think the ownership group doesn't want to have this constant revolving door of head coaches. They don't want to be a Watford. I mean, obviously, the thing with Carl Craig that doomed him wasn't necessarily the performance. It was that he lost the team. Like, that was the bigger issue. And I don't think Matt's lost the team. I just think I think they're trying too hard, if anything. I don't think they're playing their natural game. So, no, I don't think there's pressure on Matt at the moment. Even if they were not to win this game, I don't think there's enough pressure on him yet. I think there'll definitely be fans that will probably want to change, but I think there needs to be more time because they are still trying to incorporate this new system.
Yeah,
okay.
I know I get in trouble every time I have a less than sterling opinion about Forward Madison, but I just don't. They could be good. I just think that they have a lot of work to do, and I don't know.
The talent is there. Like, I think the talent is there. Like, last year, it was clear, obviously, with a guy like Aaron Malloy, there was talent on that team.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't take advantage of it. And I think it's kind of the same thing this year. Like, there is talent. Like, Cesar Murillo and Mitch Osmond and Eric Bledsoe, that's a good back three. Phil, yeah, he has his occasional mistakes, but he's still pretty deep. Like, he's a good enough keeper. I mean, like, Drew Connor, Andrew Wheeler-Omaniu, Derek Gebhard, Audie Jepson, like, they're good players. Like, I think the talent is there. They just need to put it together.
But I think it's a lot like if you build a car the wrong way, you can put all the best components on it, but if they're not meant to run together, it ain't going to work. But I don't know. I still think they're a young team in terms of time together, and they have, especially with the new coach and everything else and the new system. And I wouldn't say they're on like the table or anything like that, but I just think the team as it stands right now, I think it's going to be a Charlotte win, but it's going to be like in the last few minutes of that game.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think people would be okay. I think people, even if it's a draw, I think if there's at least enough attacking promise, then people can live with that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, let's
that
go
makes sense.
inside. Quit crying.
That's
Get
Kyle
inside.
talking to
You're
Ford
okay.
Madison, folks, not his child. Please, in that call, Child Protective Services, like 90. Guys, that wraps up that week of games. I mean, well,
Do we
do
want
you
to
guys
talk
want to do
Open
your
Cup real
camp?
quick?
Yeah, we can. I mean,
Yeah, because I guess we won't talk. Because we won't have an episode before that match. So
So
I
I
think
will say my attendance for the Thursday game will entirely depend on Omaha's performance in that game. If we lose, I'm probably stopping for dinner in Des Moines. But if we win, you bet your ass we're going like 120 miles an hour down I-35 to get back in time so I can gloat.
100%.
But no, I mean, it'll be interesting. Again, I think we kind of touched on that. It depends on if Nuhu's playing. I think if he's playing, we have a puncher's chance. I think, especially at this point in the tournament. I don't know if we can necessarily say that. I wouldn't say that I'm going in there expecting to win. I'm going in expecting for us to play a good game. If we lose, if we're in the game, I'm pretty happy. But obviously, you got to play the games, and we'll see what happens. And I would love to have a win. It seems like there's a pretty decent crowd. Pretty decent is maybe not the right word. It sounds like there's maybe like 10, 12 people from the sport group coming up, plus whatever other random people make the trip. I think we have like 30, 40 people in Chicago. So I bet we have a few more in Minneapolis, but we'll probably have 60-some people altogether in Minneapolis. So it'll be a fun time. Excited to go hang out at the Blackheart Tavern and have some beers. But I don't know. I hope we win, obviously, but I'm not necessarily going in expecting to. And I'm hoping for a moral victory more than anything.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the moral victory. Moral victories are always good, all the time. Guys, I think that wraps up this week's show. I think we did pretty well. I think we kept it under an hour. I assume not, but I think we did.
Roughly.
I don't know about that. Wait, what time is it?
5:49.
No, we did not keep it on. We did not keep it under an hour.
We're
But
like
that's
an
fine.
hour 10. We're an hour 10. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's respectable.
It's respectable.
I was saying, when we started, I was leaving to get my kids from daycare, and I'm back after taking them to the park. So it's been some time. That's okay.
Well, look at you being a responsible father.
It's what I do best.
What you do best. It's what you do best. You're absolutely right about that, Kyle. Well, guys, go ahead and this week's show. As always, folks, remember you can follow the show on Twitter and YouTube at Walking90. For Kyle, for Chip, I'm Elliot. We will holler at you guys later. Be easy and be safe. And that's today's show, folks.